INEOS have made plenty of ruthless decisions so far as Manchester United's part owners, but the decision to remove Sir Alex Ferguson from an ambassadorial, global ambassador role and from a director salary is probably the single most ruthless thing I think they have done, because it was not something that anybody was speaking about, but they have decided themselves to do it. I'm going to run through the full story here and put it in a wider context of what's happened at Manchester United with INEOS since they've come in, and all the cuts everywhere. Nobody is safe. And not even Fergie. And for a lot of people, that's going to be a bit of a shock. I would definitely say it's the most shocking of the cuts. Actually, no, that's a lie. Of course, it's a lie. Cutting 25% of Manchester United's workforce is definitely the most shocking, and I will speak about that next. But let me explain to you exactly what has happened here, all right? So Manchester United had a contract with Fergie since he left in 2014 as a global ambassador and a director, all right? You go down here and you see the numbers, right? Fergie has been retained as a global club ambassador and club director since 2013 when he retired. And there's only one official description of it in the 2014 accounts. He became a global ambassador and received 2.16 million for his services. He remained a director, but that was more of a ceremonial position because he wasn't on the club's official board. And this is what the report suggests has happened. All right. Jim Ratcliffe told Sir Alex Ferguson that the club are seeking to reduce costs and are no longer prepared to sustain his payments. The matter has been dealt with amicably, and Fergie will still be a non-executive director, so somebody who gets leaned on for advice, but doesn't actually have a casting vote as a director. And of course, Fergie will be back at the games. Now, what's your reaction to this? My immediate reaction to this was like, you kind of step back and you go, wow, that's a bold decision from INEOS, a massive decision because of how it looks, really, because of how important Fergie is to our football club. But then when you step back and you're thinking, Fergie's 82. As a global ambassador, is he going to be? He's not going to be jet setting around the world as an ambassador, because that's what club ambassadors do. They go and promote the brand of Manchester United abroad and bring in new revenues and bring in new audiences. That's what ambassadors do. They spread the word of Manchester United. That's not really what Fergie does. And if he's not actually on the football board of directors, then why should he get that salary? Now, part of me just thinks Fergie deserves that for life. But part of me also thinks that Fergie will be looking at United going, well, if I can do this, I don't think he'll be too upset about it. But the optics of it, they are strange. However, I want to run through this article here from Nick Miller from The Athletic. INEOS ending Fergie's ambassadorial role saves United money, but also trims the club's soul. I really don't think Nick Miller likes INEOS in any way, shape or form. I've seen him speak about the cuts to the workforce, and his words here, not mine. Moving on those employees in the name of making the balance sheet look a bit nicer is morally abysmal, is what he calls it. Now, it's a little bit more than that, isn't it, Nick? All right? Man United have had losses over the last 5 years of £370 million. Every facet of our business is spiraling downwards. Everything. We've been stagnating in terms of our revenue growth, and we've lost 113 million last year and over 370 million in the last 5 years. Cutting the workforce is not just a way to make the balance sheet look a little bit nicer, all right? And it was a huge decision to cut the workforce, which was bloated because of the Glazers not doing their job properly and being negligent owners and inflating a workforce that didn't need to be inflated. So the fact that INEOS had to deflate it should probably be pointing the finger at the fact that it shouldn't have been inflated in the first place. And it's not just with, and this is what I mean about kind of no one's really safe. And if people have wanted Manchester United's football owners, INEOS, to be ruthless in every aspect. And they really have been. And Fergie is, as I said, the most ruthless decision I think I've seen so far, because it didn't need to be made. Nobody would have argued that Fergie should have to be removed as a club ambassador and a director, even if they felt that there's not a return on investment per se on how much Fergie's getting each year. But not only has that happened, not only is the workforce being cut, but everywhere you've looked at what INEOS have done this season, not this season, this year, since they've taken over, has been pretty ruthless. Here, the FA Cup final. Every year, the workforce, every employee of Manchester United got a ticket to the final, 1 or 2 tickets for their family members, and they got a chauffeur. They got transport down there. They got a full hospitality day, drinks before the game, food after the game, then to a party, then to a hotel, all paid for by the club, all completely cut. You can all have 1 ticket each, and there's a bus you can get on to go down. That pissed everybody off, but it wasn't a bad decision. They also cancelled credit cards for senior members of staff in order to cut spending. They also cancelled chauffeur-driven cars. So every aspect and facet of what you're looking at INEOS doing at Manchester United, it's not as if they're just cutting the workforce and then spending all the money elsewhere. And departures this summer. Over 100 million euros Manchester United made. It's the biggest summer we've had in... Don't know how far back you've got to go, but it's at least 6, 7, 8 years in terms of making that much money. Jadon Sancho, the loan spell, off the books. I imagine we're probably paying part of his wages. But Anthony Martial gone, Rafael Varane gone, 3 of the biggest earners gone. I think next summer you'll probably see... I'll be amazed if you don't see Casemiro leave and Anthony leave. And that would mean that since INEOS came in, that probably 5 out of the top 6 earners at the club have been moved on. Every part of this football club is under scrutiny, as it should be. When you're Manchester United and you have lost £370 million over the last 5 years, you're doing something wrong. Everything needs to be looked at, whether it's the work. And I wish that no person had to be made redundant at Manchester United, because I guarantee you loads of those people who got made redundant were great people, great workers, and it's impacted their lives negatively. But should they have been there in the first place? Is one question. I probably wouldn't say that. It's how negligent have Manchester United's powers been to allow a club with north of £600 million in revenues to lose that much money? That's at the core of it. And unfortunately, as a consequence of that, when INEOS have come in, everything is at risk, whether that's Fergie's ambassadorial role, whether that's 20% of the workforce, whether that's credit cards or trips or chauffeur-driven cars. If you wanted INEOS and Ratcliffe to be ruthless, you are not going to get a more ruthless example of that. Now, do you agree with Nick Miller saying that Manchester United have trimmed the club's soul just simply to save a couple of million on the balance sheet? And what do you think Fergie's reaction to all of this would have been? My honest opinion, I think Fergie would be happy that he sees the club in the hands of INEOS rather than the hand... Well, to be fair, Fergie enabled the Glazers, didn't he? That's for a different video altogether. I understand this decision. I don't think there's going to be a more ruthless one, if I'm being totally honest. But I do understand it. As much as the optics look back, when you step back and you realise that, well, Fergie's not going to be a club ambassador and actually jet-setting around the world at age 2, and if he's not involved in a director position, then I suppose why should he get the salary? It's a tough one, this one. But INEOS, you wanted ruthless owners. That's ruthless. It's as ruthless as it could be.